Okay, so let me just bring up the slides. Hopefully you can all see these. So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining this webinar today, looking at budget travel on TikTok. If you haven't come across Listen and Learn before, I'll just give you a quick introduction. We are a specialist social insight agency. So what we do is we work with social data to help our clients understand their audiences better and ultimately to make better business decisions. And one of the kind of data sources that we've been most excited about for the last year or two is TikTok. And we think it's a real kind of untapped source of great consumer insights. So I'm going to be talking you through some of the types of insights that you can get from TikTok today. The kind of context for this particular piece, exploring budget travel on TikTok, is that obviously we're starting to see inflation affecting consumer spending in all sorts of ways. So we wanted to explore specifically how this is playing out within travel. And at the same time, this piece will hopefully kind of show you some of the sorts of insights that you can actually get from TikTok about what matters to your target audience, how to speak to them, and what's trending in terms of kind of destinations and the types of travel that people are interested in. So just to kind of think a bit more about the context for this piece, we seem to be in a bit of a kind of a perfect storm of different factors. And on the one hand, we're seeing that prices of accommodation and flights are increasing. It's much harder to book a cheap holiday now than it was, 4 or 5 years ago. People have less spending power than they did. But at the same time, coming out of COVID and the pandemic, there's this pent-up demand for travel and holidays. We have seen surveys that suggest that whilst people are willing to cut back on things like eating out and fashion, they're less likely to be willing to cut back on holidays and travel. This might be due to, reluctance to kind of put off trips that have already been cancelled or delayed, perhaps numerous times by the pandemic. So as a result of these kind of two conflicting factors, we're seeing people looking for ways to travel more cheaply. And TikTok is proving to be a really important forum for people sharing ways to do this. We're actually seeing people sharing tips on saving money in all sorts of different sectors, like food and drink as well. But travel is something that really seems to be capturing the mood and capturing a need for escapism right now. So on TikTok, we're seeing all of these posts, usually less than a minute each, where creators are posting practical tips to help their followers plan to travel at a minimum cost. Okay, so first of all, I think it's worth just zooming out for a minute and looking at where TikTok is right now. A lot of our clients haven't really spent much time exploring TikTok before, and I think there is still a tendency to see TikTok as something that's used by Gen Z, maybe just to share dance videos. But it's so much more than that now. Like I said, for us as a social insight agency, it's become one of the first places we look for consumer insight when we're starting a new project. So who's using TikTok? Gen Z and millennials are definitely well represented, and obviously TikTok is a crucial platform to understand if Gen Z millennials is one of your target audiences. But TikTok's user base is growing rapidly. TikTok actually has more than 1 billion monthly active users by this point. So that's a lot of people. And people in their 30s or 40s, even their 50s are now active on TikTok too. And that obviously represents a lot of spending power. And that's particularly important when you think about how influential TikTok is. It seems to be proving to be more influential than any other social platform. Quite what the reason for this is, I think it's something about it being video, so it being immediate and it being engaging, and the fact that it's short form keeps people engaged. TikTok also feels just a little bit more raw than platforms like Instagram that have more of a polished aesthetic. But for whatever reason, TikTok does seem to have a really huge effect on consumer behavior. And we can see this in hashtags like TikTok made me buy it, which you may have heard of. But this is a hashtag which has more than 22 billion views in total and thousands of videos sat behind it of people talking about the ways in which TikTok has influenced them as a consumer. And travel itself is huge on TikTok. Obviously, travel is a visual category. It's something that fits really well with TikTok's format. If you just kind of look at the number of views which some of these TikTok travel hashtags have, the top one here, hashtag travel, has almost 102 billion views. So that's a big engaged audience looking at travel content. And the content that's being shared on TikTok is really powerful because it tells us what's on consumers' minds right now. So we can observe firsthand who are the different audiences, what are they prioritizing, what types of travel or holiday are they talking about, who are they going on holiday with, what activities are they getting up to, what experiences are they seeking. We can even, in some cases, observe what the booking process looks like, and we can see people sharing different hacks for booking flights and hotels. And what we can also do on TikTok is we can observe the influence as it happens. We can see what and who is influencing consumers and how that mechanism is actually kind of playing out. And because TikTok's such an up-to-the-minute platform, it can also be a really powerful way of spotting emerging signals and emerging trends. So, for example, what destinations are just starting to creep into the conversation. And obviously, if you can spot those signals before they blow up into huge trends, you can act on them faster, potentially act on them faster than your competitors are doing. So we are starting to see travel brands are taking note of TikTok for advertising and marketing. So Booking.com launched a great campaign earlier in the summer. It's hashtag TikTok made me book it if you want to check it out. But Booking.com used a mixture of branded posts, and they worked with a really broad selection of influencers from all around the world, basically to advertise a branded competition to win a trip to anywhere. So it's worth checking out that campaign if you're interested. It was interesting seeing all the different ways in which different influencers kind of interpreted the brief in their own ways, and then how consumers actually responded to that with their own videos as well. But this is a video I'll play you here from Booking.com itself. Not sure if that... Oh, here we are. Okay, so on that video, really good engagement. I think there were 12,000 likes in total, around 3,000 comments. What really stands out from this video, in fact, if you look at the quote on the right of the screen here from Booking.com's social media director, you can really convey the experience of a trip on TikTok, from the flight to the accommodation to a slight breeze at sunset, sitting poolside while sipping a frozen drink. There is something really evocative about TikTok's format that does suit travel really well. Other brands, Skyscanner, have been making noises about TikTok too. So there's definitely recognition starting to grow of the importance of TikTok as a marketing channel. But TikTok is still massively underused as a source for consumer insights, and particularly for really in-depth consumer understanding, which is a shame, because it's such a good window into what actually matters to people. So TikTok, like other social media, it lets us observe what people are actually saying to each other when researchers aren't in the room. So it gives us a window into what really matters to people. It's a bit more raw, it's a bit more unfiltered, and it can give us a really deep understanding of, how people actually feel and think and act about the topics that matter to you as a brand. The issue with TikTok, though, I think a reason why consumer insight, kind of drawing consumer insight from TikTok, is perhaps lacking at the moment, is that the usual ways in which we would gather social media data aren't open to us. So TikTok doesn't really have public APIs. We can't use our usual social listening tools to kind of collect and analyze TikTok data. So it means that we have to be a little bit more creative when analysing this sort of data. But if you're looking for, an innovative research approach, if you're looking for a chance to potentially get ahead of what your competitors are doing, TikTok is a great way of doing that. So back to budget travel specifically. So for the insights I'm going to talk you through for the rest of this session, we have analysed and coded hundreds of TikTok videos on budget travel using our first of its kind qualitative TikTok methodology. So I'm not going to go into the methodology in depth today. If that's something you're interested in, please do get in touch and I can talk you through it. We've got other webinars which we've done in the past covering the methodology itself, which you can watch as well. But what we've done here is we've watched through videos from a selection of hashtags, which you can see on screen, related to budget travel. And we've tried to pull apart what's happening in these videos. So what are the key themes people are talking about? Who are the different audiences? What's motivating them? What's standing in their way? Because obviously, if we understand this can help us understand how to cater for consumers right now, both in comms and in services. We've not done it for this particular piece, but what we can also do with TikTok, what we've done in the past, is we can analyze things like what are the key sounds, the key songs that people are playing, what are the colors and the visuals that people are using, what's the mood and the tone of voice. And obviously this is all really powerful information if you're looking to build your own marketing material as well. So what did we find? There were 5 key themes that I'm going to talk you through in turn and show you some example TikTok videos. Just to quickly go through them, the first theme is that consumer demand is resilient despite the kind of economic situation we're in. It's interesting, we see people frame not having the money, kind of almost in romantic terms. So they'll talk about how being broke is just a part of being young, but they still have that thirst for adventure. The second theme is around the importance of planning. So we see people sharing tips on how to finance travel, and in particular, kind of the importance of long-term planning. The third tip is around, third theme is around savvy travel. So we see people sharing hacks for bagging a bargain or when booking, and in particular, people are talking in very specific terms about the importance of different booking features and functionality when looking to travel on a budget. The fourth trend, this is all around attention, which we see emerging on TikTok between content, which is very kind of aspirational and maybe a bit more polished. And on the other hand, a group of people who want to see content which is a bit more real. So myth making versus myth busting. And then the fifth theme, which we see, hashtag TikTok made me go there. This is all about how we can start to see some of the trending destinations or the types of travel that people are looking for when we analyze TikTok data and budget travel in particular. So if I go into each of these themes in turn, so I think the first theme, good news for travel brands. The budget travel videos we looked at on TikTok do suggest there is a good level of resilience in consumer demand to travel. That desire hasn't disappeared. People are just having to be a little bit more creative to be able to achieve it. And what's interesting in the language that people use is, we don't see people talking about, oh, I need to travel more cheaply because of inflation or because of the economic downturn. Instead, the way people frame it is, I need to focus on traveling on a budget because I'm young, because I'm a student. But these people still want to be able to travel, they still want to see the world. There's almost this perception that, you're young and therefore, you're going to be broke, you're going to be struggling financially. So this video here, which I'll quickly play you, kind of sums up the language quite nicely. It's the cheapest places to travel when you're young and broke. So I feel like this language, it's almost romanticizing the idea of being young and broke. It's not really a barrier, it's just a life stage. So immediately we can start to see different audiences emerging, students, young people, and we can start to get clues about the different language and positioning that people might respond to. Our key takeaway from this theme is, don't mention the war. and the resulting economic downturn. This is all about what you can do. It's about finding adventure. It's about empowerment. It's about not being constrained by, the broader global circumstances that people are finding themselves in. Okay, the next theme is all around basically how to get away with budget traveling. So within this theme, we can start to see some of the motivations for budget travel emerging. And more than ever before, we're seeing people talking about kind of, dreaming of leaving their worries behind. At the most extreme end of this, we're seeing lots of accounts that have been set up by young people who've decided to drop out of a rat race, travel the world whilst they're still young and quit their jobs. And we'll talk about the kind of different strategies that they're using in order to be able to achieve this. So they'll talk about saving money, sometimes for years in advance, in order to finance their travels. And they'll talk about working as a digital nomad, so very much taking advantage of the changes which we've seen over a pandemic in terms of people being able to work remotely. And we see people talking about financing their travels by working locally, so using schemes like Workaway or other work exchange websites that let them essentially stay somewhere for free. They'll get their food included quite often, and they just have to do, a few hours of work, various types of work every day. So this video here is quite a nice example of someone praising the Workaway scheme and the experiences that they've been able to have by taking part in this. We'll just play this. So this video obviously really positive about Workaway. A lot of other videos we see though, they will also be highlighting the safety risks potentially of working away, and particularly for solo female travellers, and creators will kind of warn against, compromising personal safety just to travel cheaply. So that's a concern that some of your audience might be thinking about. And whilst these are probably quite extreme cases of people, dropping out of work, they're still influential on, I guess, normal people who want to travel more cheaply. So the learning for me for travel brands here is it's about showing empathy with budget travelers. So show that you understand what drives them, this idea of, leaving your worries behind, getting out of the 9 to 5. And where possible, be thinking, how do we create content or services that will help this audience to travel more efficiently, more cheaply, and more safely? So, if you think about content, it's quite easy to imagine a series on financing your trip or ways to reduce costs while traveling. Okay, so the next theme, savvy travel hacks for bagging a bargain when booking. So understandably, a lot of the posts we see in this area are geared towards basically giving advice on how to find the best deals when traveling, how to save money, and generally just to keep costs as low as possible. So creators use hacks lists to show their different tips. So I'll show you a video kind of showing some of the tips which we tend to actually see surfacing most often. It's a nice empowering message at the end there. So we see that advice being shared. We also see people sharing advice at Booking around traveling off season, particular destinations that might be cheaper, the importance of booking in advance. When it comes to traveling, people kind of share tips around avoiding tourist traps. They'll talk about how to save on phone charges by getting a local SIM, being aware of ATM charges, in some cases kind of trying to haggle to get goods for cheaper. So for brands, I would think about trying to emulate this format of hack lists in advertising. It's basically all about showing consumers that you have their best interest in mind. It's helping them to achieve that balance of getting the experiences they want, but without having to spend the earth. It's about getting more for less and feeling savvy. And then if we just stay on this theme for a second, hacks videos, these types of videos can also help you to understand the features and the filters that your audience actually want when booking. So I'll just play this video. This is some of the functionality that as a brand it might be worth thinking about when considering the booking experience if you want to appeal to budget travelers. Okay, so I think that video is interesting as well, just in talking about flexibility in a way in which budget travelers might be thinking about travel. It's not that they necessarily have a destination in mind. It's just that they want to go somewhere and they will do that as cheaply as possible. So I think the comments, it's kind of probably worth mentioning on TikTok, can be really useful as a source of insight as well, to show us some of the things which consumers are thinking about. So, for example, the top comment here: these sites are great unless you have issues with the flights or need refunds, then it becomes hell. This is just one example that kind of shows us some of the issues or concerns that people might also have when using certain websites. You might also start to notice at this point that it's not a very diverse audience that we found talking about this topic. It wasn't exclusively white millennials, but like a lot of it was. So that might be something to think about or explore as a brand as well. What's driving that? Are there other audiences that you could appeal to in your marketing, or be thinking about making travel or kind of marketing more accessible, more diverse, maybe working with certain influencers to appeal to a broader set of people than seem to be kind of sharing the content at the moment. Okay, then theme number 4. This is all about myth making versus myth busting, and the importance of being real. So for travel world, TikTok as well is kind of filled with what you might call myth conceptions. And what we see on TikTok is a bit of a tension happening between, there's one group of TikTokers who kind of very much work to portray idealized images of certain parts of the world. And on the other hand, we have people who are kind of working to dispel the travel myths that group number 1 are peddling. So for the myth makers, they sort of convey budget travel in a really aspirational way. They convey all the kind of, well, basically they're like, we've come to paradise for $10 a day type thing. So quite often they'll talk about Southeast Asia, particularly Thailand and Bali, as kind of a backdrop, and they'll show themselves living the dream. And this will usually be kind of in the context of a post talking about how, this is one of the cheapest places in the world for young people to travel to. So I'll just show you this example video of that. Just pause that, conscious of time. But overall, there's very much a sense of, this could be you, these aspirational posts. That video is also quite a good example of the sorts of experiences that people might be looking for. But these videos very much kind of omit any potential difficulties of making this experience happen. Quite often we'll see that the influencers who are posting these videos will then also be talking about third-party affiliates that they're working with that can help you, make this dream happen. And we do see some backlash against this kind of, I guess, aspirational video in some of the comments. So, for example, this comment here, I don't think it's cheap to get there, but it's cheap there. So it's possible to live off $13 a day, but how much did the flights actually cost to get you out there? And then on the other side of the debate, we have the kind of the myth busters. So these are people who are attempting to bring an alternative viewpoint on how TikTok and maybe the wider world presents travel. So it's a bit of a backlash against the idealization of travel. I think this quote on the right sums up quite nicely. This was a TikTok video with 3 young female travelers. They were kind of warning viewers of mistakes that they'd made while traveling and paying too much attention to I guess for TikTok, TikTok recommendations. So don't pay too much attention to TikTok because it romanticizes stuff. So you'll show up to a bar like Lucerne and be severely disappointed. So this kind of trend really seems to reflect a desire amongst young consumers to, be real, to see content that is authentic, that is realistic. Another interesting post, which I just want to show you, which is myth busting, but in a slightly different way, is this one showing the kind of expectation versus reality of traveling in Iraq. So. So this video is actually presented by a creator whose entire TikTok account seems to be aimed at trying to dispel maybe kind of preconceived notions about Arabic nations being riskier to visit. They also have visited kind of various African countries and a kind of myth busting about those destinations. And this creator wants to show a more positive side to some destinations. So I think this idea of playing with audiences' preoccupation with travel myths is really interesting. There are opportunities for brands to be challenging the traditional kind of ways of storytelling which we might see. Because if you can turn consumer expectations on their head, there's a real opportunity to be reinventing, rebranding travel destinations. Okay, and then the final trend, hashtag TikTok made me go there. This is all around using TikTok as a way to start to pick up on signals on which destinations are trending. Because obviously, if you can see those signals early enough, that can put you ahead of your competitors in planning for them. And sort of understanding why people are actually talking about specific destinations, that can be even more powerful for helping you then start to predict or even shape what will trend next. So we do see many people sort of just outright sharing destinations that are cheap. But another interesting formula which we see influencing budget travelers is the don't go here, go here. TikTok post. So travelers will often have quite kind of fixed ideas of the types of experiences and destinations that they're looking for, and this will often be influenced by the aspirational posts which I've seen on social. But quite often we'll see these videos where people will kind of compare and contrast two similar locations. On the one hand, it'll be a really popular and pricey destination, and on the other, it'll be a cheaper destination where you can get kind of a similar experience for a lot cheaper. So people will say, instead of Hawaii, go to St. Martin, go to Holbox over Cancun. In this example, so I won't play all of that, but that's just another example of, it could be the Maldives, but it's actually an island in Panama. This video in particular is quite interesting. It kind of lists out different activities and different expenses associated with those activities, and that's quite a popular format as well. But this advice around picking one destination over another, it's interesting because it also reflects some of the other themes we see on TikTok. So for the young, kind of ethically minded TikTok crowd who are concerned about over tourism of certain destinations, they will use this format as well. So again, it's worth thinking as a brand, how might you be able to take advantage of this trend to maybe market overlooked or up and coming travel destinations? This headline on the right here, this is actually from an academic journal article, but this is about the TikTok effect. So TikTok's ability to make kind of off the beaten track destinations famous overnight. So it's powerful stuff. It does come with its own and risks sometimes, as this journal kind of talks about. Okay, so just to sum up, the success of budget travel on TikTok, it really presents an opportunity for travel brands. It shows the types of content, the types of services, features, functionality that people might be looking for. So how might brands use budget travel on TikTok to reach and to understand new audiences? For us, the main takeaways are, first of all, to make sure that you're speaking in consumer language. So there's definitely a positive story which we saw around the resilience of if we kind of demand travel. And it's interesting the way people are framing their desire to travel. It's, having a tight budget, it's actually just part of being young. People still have that desire for adventure. We don't see people talking about inflation or the economic downturn. So echo that in your comms. You're young, you're broke, but you're ready for adventure. The second kind of takeaway for us is just around the importance of showing empathy with budget travelers. So show that you understand what drives them. It's about getting away from your worries, getting away from a 9 to 5, and then come up with content or services that will actually help them to travel more cheaply, more safely, and more efficiently without compromising on the experience. The third tip for us is to echo back the hacks. So think about the formats that people actually use on TikTok and play this back for them. So you could, emulate the format of hacks lists in your advertising, show consumers that you have their best interests in mind. Point number 4 is to go heavy on the plot twist. So I really like this idea. It's about, I guess, that perfectly manicured influencer look not being as appealing anymore. It's about playing with audiences' preoccupation with travel myths, challenging those myths, turning expectations on their head to kind of reinvent and rebrand new travel destinations. And then the final point, probably any presentation about TikTok would be remiss if we didn't say to think about influencers. If you want to do marketing on TikTok, working with influencers that are already established can really just help you to build that credibility, build that audience, and it's an important way of overcoming Gen Z's reluctance to engage with branded content. Okay, so thank you very much for listening. We've gotten very slightly over on time, so sorry for that. But this was a really quick analysis of budget travel on TikTok. Hopefully gave you a flavour of the sorts of insights you can get from TikTok. If you would like to discuss kind of using TikTok insights to strengthen your own strategy or comms or services, obviously please do get in touch. Otherwise, look out for our next webinars. So we've got one on the 5th of October, exploring how to analyse social data. And we've got another one on the 21st of October, looking at TikTok again, but this time exploring what financial services brands can learn from TikTok. So thank you very much for listening, everybody, and I hope you have a nice day.